Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told how to voice radio, so today I'm going to be showing you a card which I believe has a lot of potential and which has just started to see a little bit of success. It is Pidgeot EX. Now, it came out in the recent Evolution set, and honestly, this was a set for collectors, not players, but we might have found a gem. Now, let's start with the basics. It's a colourless Pokemon, meaning that it can be put in any deck with any partner whatsoever. You'll be wanting to use double colourless energy, but outside of that, you can use whatever energy you like. It has a resistance to fighting, which is always good. It has a weakness to lightning, which is not good because, well, I told you recently how Raikou was potentially getting a little bit bigger. And of course, our old friend Zeb Striker says hello. But it's not the worst weakness to have at the moment, ladies and gentlemen. It really isn't. Retreat cost of 1, quite nice, 170 HP, quite standard. Now, the bad attack here is Feather Lance, 80 damage, 20 to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon, for free energy. Now, this is not hot garbage. This is a slightly underpowered Night Spear, and Night Spear ruled the format for several years, and is still very good and expanded. But you do 10 less to the active, 10 less to the bench. Now, that's fine. It's not amazing. It's fine. And there will be times in the game, and I say this on my videos quite a lot, you always need to be aware of what your Pokemon do. Not just the move you want to use, but the moves you can use. There will be situations where your opponent retreats a Pokemon, or ends up for some reason or another with a Pokemon on their bench with 10 or 20 HP remaining. Feather Lance says hello. To be honest, anytime you can get a KO with Feather Lance, you should, because anytime you can do an extra 20 damage to the bench is always a very good thing. But the attack we really like here is Mirror Move. If this Pokemon was damaged by an attack during your opponent's last turn, this attack does the same amount of damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. So you keep the damage done to you, but you do damage to them. Now, this is kind of like Mega Mewtwo using Damage Change, copying it from Mewtwo, because you're essentially saying, you're not one-hit KOing me, so you know what? You do some damage to me, I'll do some damage to you, this sounds good to me. Now, if you're using the non-EX, there are two things you need. Firstly, you need Fighting Fury Belt, because now you've got 210 HP and you still got that resistance to fighting. So anytime you aren't KO'd by your opponent, you get to do as much damage to them as they did to you. But of course, you're only using one energy here, so the card you really want is Max Potion. You get to heal off Pidgeot EX completely, and the only downside is you have to discard all the energy attached to Pidgeot. Well, you know what? You've only got one energy attached to Pidgeot, so go ahead and discard it with Max Potion, because you only need to attach one energy to then use Mirror Move. And this is essentially what you do. Max Potion, Mirror Move, Max Potion, Mirror Move, Max Potion, Mirror Move. Now, there are other healing cards, of course. Something like Pokemon Center Lady heals 60 in special conditions and can be reused with Versus Seeker. But might I suggest using maybe Puzzle of Time here if Max Potion is that important to you? So, sounds quite nice. Now, there is one huge downside of Mirror Move, but we'll get to that in a minute, because there is another option. Instead of using Pidgeot EX, you use Mega Pidgeot. Don't forget you'll need to use the Spirit Link here so you don't end your turn to evolve. Now you go 220 HP, which is 10 more than a Pidgeot with a Fighting Fury Belt. And you use Shrine of Memories to go ahead and copy Mirror Move from Pidgeot. Sounds like fun. So now you get a 220 HP Mega, hitting for as much was done to you. And of course, now this is sounding even more like Mega Mewtwo, using Shrine of Memories to copy an EX to do a damage that was done to you. Now, the thing you gain here is you gain Mega Turbo. Now, I'm not sure which of these two I prefer. Mega Turbo means that you can Max Potion and energy off, and then Mega Turbo it right back on again. Now, of course, using the non-Mega, the regular EX, means that you don't have to have the Spirit Link and the Evolution, so you would imagine it to be a little bit faster and a little bit more consistent. But the Mega gives you an extra 10 HP. It means that things that would turn off Fighting Fury Belt, think Rattata to discard it, which is going to see a bit of play. Think something like the Fright Night Yveltal, which turns off the effect of it. the Fighting Fury bout now is not necessarily to be relied upon. Even something like Pidgeot EX has been seeing a little bit of play to get rid of these tools. Whereas Mega Pidgeot, you've just got 220 HP. The other thing is, don't sleep on how good Mega Turbo can be, because Mega Turbo means you can reattach the energy after Max Potion, and you can then go ahead and attach an energy normally to one of your other Pokemon. Although, of course, not only do you lose the ability to play Faded Town yourself, which you can do with regular Pidgeot, but actually your opponent can play Faded Town to do damage to you. And unlike Mewtwo, this is just the damage done to you the previous turn, not the total amount of damage on you. I hope that does make sense. So, they're the two options. They are different. I would say test them out. Now, there's one thing which I'm not a huge fan of here, and that is that your opponent gets to control the pace of the game. Your opponent might go, right, well, I tell you what, well, I've got 140 HP, so if I do 110, even if they play a Giovanni scheme, they can't one-hit KO me. And that's a bit of a problem. Your opponent is essentially dictating your damage output. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because, of course, remember, you can sit and hit there for 80-20 with the non-EX. While we're here, of course, when you get the Mega, you get a new attack. Now, we've been talking about using Mirror Move because that's kind of the heart of the deck, but of course the other reason to use the Mega is you get Max Cyclone. 130 for free energy is not terrible, I suppose, especially when you're using a double colourless, but you don't have to, it's an option, make your opponent switch his or her active Pokemon. Now, 130 is going to be enough to KO a non-EX most of the time. Think things like Greninja or Volcanion. But 130 is not going to KO EXs, but it is going to disrupt them, and I've said this before, I'll say it again now. If you can't one-hit KO, two-hit KO with disruption. This is why I think I would lean towards the Mega. It's got the better backup attack. I've just explained to you why Mirror Move makes me nervous. You're letting your opponent dictate the game. But with the Mega, you can sit and Max Cyclone, using Mirror Move as an option if they can't one-hit KO you doing 220. If they do more than 130, you use Mirror Move. If they do less than 130, you do Max Cyclone. Nice and simple. If they do exactly 130, dealer's choice. Although remember, you won't always have the energy to use Max Cyclone after a Max Potion, but of course, Mega Turbo DCE will make it happen. That's the basics of this deck, ladies and gentlemen. Mirror Move plus a free energy attack, and your choices are Pidgeot Fighting Fury Belt or Mega Pidgeot Shrine of Memories. I leave it up to you to decide which you prefer. Now, I told you that Pidgeot was colourless, and that is key. I don't think Pidgeot is good enough on his own. Sorry, I went there, I said it. Now, all the decks that have been having a bit of success lately have been playing Garbodor. What does Garbodor do? Turns off abilities. Like I said, two-hit KO with disruption. Pidgeot doesn't need abilities, but things like Volcanion does. Things like Greninja do. So, you know what? Let's go with this. Let's play Garbodor. Now, in terms of other options, I've got 3 for you. I'm not saying they're perfect, and honestly, what we see with decks like this is that people start and they make lists and they start having a bit of success. This will not necessarily, it could, but it will not necessarily correlate to what the deck looks like when it starts seeing sustained success. Firstly, Electric Energy and Jolteon. Free energy, 70 damage, and you cannot be hit by basics the following turn. So you come across an all-basics deck like Volcanion, Jolteon does quite nicely. Even in something like, you know, the mirror match, for instance, let's say a Jolteon, 70 damage, let's say a Fighting Fury about 80 damage, let's say a Giovanni's 100 damage, now you're doing 200 and you're one-hit KOing a Pidgeot EX because of the weakness. Sounds good to me. Although, of course, if you're worried about the mirror, you're already playing double colourless, so seriously, play Zeb Striker. It one-hit KOs a lot nowadays. Maybe it should get its own video. But that's something for the future. Another option I have for you is Metal Energy and Magearna. Magearna EX, of course, is a decent attacker. It's not horrible. You're playing double colourless energy, so that's good. But of course, you get the ability. Now, I understand I've just said play Garbodor. Here's the thing. You see who needs the ability more. If they need the ability more, you play Garbodor. If they don't need the ability, you play Magearna. Nice and simple. Soul Blaster, 120 for free energy, will one-hit KO your metal weak Pokemon like Gardevoir. So you basically get a really insanely good Gardevoir matchup. Yay! But we've also got the ability here, which is just good. Any effects of attacks other than damage get stopped. So Jirachi trying to get rid of your double colourless energy, or etc, etc. Even something like a Raticate couldn't get rid of your energy here. Although, of course, special conditions are often caused by attacks as well. Think Froakie's Bubble. Not when you've got a Magearna. Another option, of course, here is that you play with the Magearna. You play the promo Magearna, which does 20 damage times the number of different types of Pokemon on your opponent's bench for just a single metal energy. This will pretty much auto-win you the Rainbow Road matchup if that's something that you are particularly concerned about. The third and final option I've got for you, and these are just the ones I'm telling you today, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, there are others. I let you to figure them out yourselves. Water. Now, you're already playing double colourless, so you play some water energy, you play Regice to block against EX decks, you play Glaceon to block against evolution decks, meaning the only one that really gets through you is basic non-EX, most of whom are going to be one-hit KO'd by Max Cyclone. Yay! So this isn't a build of the deck I've actually seen around lately. I've seen people hyping the metal and lightning. I've not actually seen a list for the water. For me, the water one seems better. You play Ninja Boy, so you can switch between Pokemon at your will. If you're against basic non-EXs, then you go for Mega Pidgeot. Max Cyclone will be a one-hit KO. If you are against EX decks, you go Regice. If you're against Evolution decks, you play Glaceon. Do remember, of course, that Pokemon Ranger will go through them. Heck, even stick a Manaphy EX in there for free retreat if you like. My personal preference here is Mega Pidgeot with Water Energy, Regice, and Glaceon. I've not seen this build of the deck hyped, but you know what? It's my preferred build. Now, as I've said, Pidgeot is a colourless Pokemon that can use any energy and thus can have any partners whatsoever. I leave it up to you lovely people to figure out what the best options are. Until then, stick a comment down below, tell me which build of the deck you prefer, or maybe it's one I haven't even thought of yet. There are like and subscribe buttons, click them, it will make me a happy boy. And of course you can follow me on Twitter at @TheWassy. Click that thumbnail that just came up, and as always, make sure you look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.